Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the 7th episode of my 4th series, 10 Fitness Commandments, and the 6th commandment is called 6 Movements. Out of many similarities between bodybuilding and powerlifting, perhaps the most important similarity is the emphasis on different movement patterns. For powerlifting, the big 3, back squat, bench press, and deadlift, are not only competition lifts that determine your total poundage, but they're also the quintessential example for the movement pattern of squat, push, and pull. For bodybuilding, even it is not judged by the amount of weight you can lift, but because different movement patterns determine which muscle groups will be trained. The big 3 still have huge influence on it. And you can even say that the big 3 have always hijacked bodybuilding to the extent that one of the most popular split, push-pull legs, or PPL for short, can be basically simplified as doing one of the big 3 with a few accessories on different days. Obviously, movement patterns matter to function and performance as well as aesthetics. However, although the big 3 are the quintessential example for the movement pattern of squat, push, and pull, it is unwise to attach a movement pattern to a specific exercise, and there should be more movement patterns than what the big 3 can represent. But before I talk about all these other movement patterns, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Takes less than a second, costs you nothing, and will help me a great deal in delivering the most efficient muscle building knowledge to the whole world. I really appreciate your support. Now, back to my video. How many movement patterns are there exactly? Before I present all the movement patterns, I would like to firstly introduce one of the most overlooked experts, Dr. John Rusin. And an analogy I always like to use is, if the mainstream popular fitness stars like Jeff Cavaliere, Greg Doucette, and Mike Israetel are the big 3 that constitute the main framing of the house of your training knowledge, then less well-known experts like Matt Wenning and Dr. John Rusin are what you need to know to make the main framing as durable as possible, or in other words, the longevity of your training. As an internationally recognized performance and fitness expert specializing in injury prevention and rehabilitation, Dr. John Rusin has deep insight into how to properly program resistance training and choose the exercises that fit you best. He has ingeniously created the 3-to-1 pull-to-push ratio, which I have mentioned in my last commandment, 5 vulnerables. This ratio is critically important for long-term shoulder health and posture maintenance. I have personally benefited tremendously from this ratio. In my opinion, this ratio alone is enough to establish the significance of John Rusin in the whole fitness world. But Dr. John Rusin's ingenuity does not stop there. In the article he has published on T Nation many years ago, the 6 foundational movement patterns, he created the notion of 6 basic movement patterns. The first, and perhaps the most obvious reason why 6 basic movement patterns are called patterns, is in Dr. John Rusin's own words. As a human, your body moves in pretty much the same way as other humans, and he has categorized movements into 6 main different patterns: squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, and carry. And this is where this commandment, 6 movements, is from. However, there is much more to this commandment than simply knowing the name of different movements. As Dr. John Rusin aptly pointed out, there's a problem. Not all the exercises that mimic these patterns are right for everybody, at least not right away. That's why the second, and perhaps the most important reason why 6 basic movement patterns are called patterns. Because the movement pattern is not about a specific exercise. Each movement pattern is an umbrella term that covers a continuum of exercises from regression to progression, but still share the same movement features. And depending on your body's own measurements and your current skill level, you may freely choose one or a few exercises from the continuum that suit your circumstances best to train. For example, in the hinge pattern, there are 7 different levels from regression to progression, starting from bodyweight RDL to dumbbell RDL to barbell RDL to dumbbell deadlift to trap bar deadlift to barbell rack pull to eventually barbell deadlift. Now, speaking from my personal experience, when I first started training, I did start from barbell deadlift, the hardest version of the hinge. But I never quite liked this exercise because it just does not fit my body's own biomechanics very well. And later on, when I switched to trap bar deadlift at my intermediate phase, it felt way better, way more natural than the barbell version, which is a very common case for many lifters. It turns out that my body is better at doing a regressed version of hinging, and I was forcing my body to do the most difficult version. And if you are not a powerlifter, why force your body to do the most difficult version when it is not ready, while you still have other choices? This reason really gives sensible flexibility, as opposed to insensible dogma to so many lifters. Yes, you must train in all 6 basic movement patterns, but they don't have to be barbell squat, barbell bench, and barbell deadlift, as many professed fitness gurus would pontificate. In fact, as you can see in Dr. John Rusin's article, the barbell back squat, barbell bench press, and barbell deadlift are all the most difficult versions out of each movement pattern, which is another reason why I'm against strictly using the big 3 in bodybuilding context in my 4th commandment, the 4 pillars. Instead, Dr. John Rusin has provided all the regressions and progressions of each movement pattern, and you have the liberty to choose from all the variations. And that is really empowering, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced. Since the inception of 10 Fitness Commandments in November 2023, I kept learning new knowledge and perfecting my own system in last year and a half. The upgrade of this commandment reflects my deeper understanding of the biomechanics, and below are my own thoughts. Rows are king. As I've mentioned in my 3rd commandment, 3 evils, it is very important to find the common denominator behind every successful diet. Here, the common denominator behind every movement pattern is as well important. Although they're different, for you to successfully execute every movement pattern always requires the same thing: scapular retraction, or in simpler words, stick your chest out. Whether you are squatting, deadlifting, pushing, or pulling, the moment your chest caves in, there's an increased risk of getting injured. Strong scapular muscles are a must for any movement patterns, and that's why rows are king. The squat-hinge continuum. Although in the article on T-Nation, Dr. John Rusin has split squat and hinge into 2 different movement patterns, but on his own website, he has a graph that illustrates the squat-hinge continuum, and this is perhaps a better approach than treating squat and hinge entirely separately. When it comes to lower body muscles, meaning your quads, glutes, and hamstrings, They prefer to work together in compound movements like squat and deadlift, as most lower body exercises contain both knee extension and hip extension. That's why the squat-hinge continuum makes more sense. And wouldn't you know it, the trap bar deadlift is right at the center of the continuum, which perfectly explains why this is one of the favorite exercises for so many people, because it equally covers both the squat and hinge pattern. However, for most people, it is still better to put their focus on the hinge pattern instead of the squat pattern for two reasons. Number one, most people's quads are already way stronger than their hamstrings. Focusing on the squat will only exacerbate the imbalance. And number two, compared to the much more heavy-duty hip joint, the knee joint is not meant to be a power joint. It is more meant to be a stabilizing joint. Hence, when you're lifting heavy weights, it is much safer to focus on using your glutes instead of using your quads. That's why one of the best powerlifters with back squat world record under his belt, Matt Winning, once famously said, "The back squat is a hip-dominant movement. It may look like a knee-dominant movement, but the moment you let your quads take over your glutes, you are in deep trouble." So, although there is a squat-hinge continuum, in most cases, it will be better for you to lean more towards the hinge pattern. Elimination of straight vertical pushing. Although Dr. John Rusin has split push into vertical and horizontal in the article, he did not have any specific point against vertical pushing. However, after I've watched the interview that Matt Winning has done on Elite FTS Table Talk, and from my personal observation working for an interior business that requires a lot of overhead movements, almost all of my on-site colleagues have some kind of shoulder injuries. I'm on the same page with Matt Winning. Strict overhead pressing should be eliminated from your training if you care about your shoulder joint. You may not get caught instantly, but over time, it will definitely create a lot of troubles for your shoulders. Pull to push ratio. Although the 3-to-1 pull to push training volume ratio has already been mentioned multiple times, here this ratio makes sense from a different angle. Pulling muscles are the foundation for you to excel at pushing movements. The importance of glutes and hamstrings in back squats. The importance of traps, rear delts, and lats in bench pressing. If you don't know how to pull, you don't know how to push. The importance of unilateral exercises. Dr. John Rusin has listed lunge as an individual movement pattern in his article, but the importance of unilateral exercises goes beyond that. It also applies to your upper body push and pull as well, like one-arm rows. And it is beneficial to keep the strength difference between your left and right within 5% margin. That's why if you look at my fourth commandment, 4 pillars, 2 exercises are unilateral exercises: the landmine overhead press and the dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. The importance of core stability. Although briefly mentioned in the movement pattern of carry, the importance of core training was still somewhat overlooked in the original article. Now, there are people there claiming that you don't have to directly train your core muscles because all compound lifts will engage your core muscles. But if you take your core muscles to a whole new level, your compound lifts are all going to benefit from it. So yes, train your abs. Alright, a brief summary of the upgrade of this commandment. Just like the connections between cardiovascular fitness and muscle mass in my previous episode, The Silent Governor of Your Own Genetic Limit, there are connections between 6 movement patterns as well, and some movement patterns are acting as the governor for other movement patterns, and as a result, they're more important than their counterparts. But regardless of relative importance, when you design your weight training program, you should always remember this. no matter what exercise variables you want to choose. Those shall not miss any of the 6 movements. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next commandment. Peace out.